film it. Oh, actually, it's
True, you're right, yeah.
The meeting is being recorded. All right.
Call the meeting to order.
I just have a quick question. Just everything in our budget line item is public, right?
Mhm.
Correct, okay.
Yep, so this is what's these are the claims that's in the board packet.
Right, I just want to clarify. And so any questions on any of those expenditures are public?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
We have, let me pull up my agenda. I can't. Do you have it, Felicia?
We're doing grant kind of education review.
Yeah. Okay. So grant education started. Jason called. Good conversation when we were setting the agenda. That I think that we have, a variety of grants that you hear about, whether it's the title grant or the transformational learning grant, Montana Advanced Opportunities grant, Gifted and Talented grant, Perkins grant, REAP.
CTE,
CTE,
ESSER.
ESSER, all sorts of grants. And I think Jason had a really good idea just on kind of like a theme, some grant education. And so what we did was my packet starts there with the law. In light of, kind of some questions about transformational learning grant and how that money is being allocated, I don't think we need to read the law line item by line item, but legislators in the 23 session, allocated some specific funding to schools from the catchphrase that they're using is transformational learning, but it's also kind of like a personalized learning approach that I think they're trying to push for students in the state. So this grant is kind of rooted in that funding that came from the state level. Allison was the original author of the district's transformational learning grant. Submitted it. It was accepted for Joliet was approved to be a grant recipient of that. And if you read through the language of the law, districts, when you qualify for a 4-year funding cycle. And the way that it funds is it allows you to get a certain amount of money, half of which is provided by the state, and then half of which the district is now entitled to permissively levy from. So if you think back to our budget adoptions that we've gone through, I'll just pull up this slide real quick. And these are, is it 128, Felicia, or 129?
129 and 229.
129 and 229 are the transformational learning grants, so also known as kind of that flexibility fund. When you look at the budget proposal, the total budget, for example, for the fiscal year, I think this is the best picture. The first year that it was funded, in fiscal year 22, the total budget was $66,000 in the elementary, for example. 33,000 of that was levied directly from our taxpayers, so about half of that is permissively levied, while the state kicks in the other half on that.
So when you say you get the amount from the state, from the grant, then are we obligated to match that in order to get the money? Do we have to permissively levy that, or is it obviously it gives us that opportunity, so.
Yeah,
I was
I
under the understanding that you have to provide half. They'll provide half and we provide half.
Yeah, it's kind of an understanding of, we have this opportunity in a short window.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they want schools to utilize, as much as they can, because obviously they can't fund the entire project. And so they give us that opportunity for that short window to be able to increase the benefit to our students. Doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't know you.
I wonder if that's defined here.
Or you only get however much you can match, or.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And to a great extent, it is formulaic. So the amount of money that we get from the state and then the amount of money that we can levy from our community is based on the number of teachers that we have. So that's the formula behind it. So you can't just go out and permissibly levy whatever you want. It's a capped amount, as defined by OPI. I don't see anything in the law or.
So on the bottom of 4.
Yeah, that's what I meant too.
It says, if the obligations set forth are met, you can levy an annual permissive property tax not to exceed 100% of any funds distributed. So it says, as long as you meet its parameters,
So you wouldn't have to,
You can
you
levy.
wouldn't have to levy.
yeah, it
the
doesn't
full
say you
amount.
have to, but it says if you do, then you have all of these parameters that you have to meet. Has to be put into the flex fund, has to be expended by the district only for purposes in the grant that has been written. You can't transfer it, you can't use it for anything other than what's in the grant, so.
Interesting.
You know, and so I think the bigger piece to keep in mind here, I can't remember where that is stated on districts may receive the grant for 1 4-year period in a total of an 8-year window. So we are at the 4th year of the transformational learning grant, so we are done essentially. For 4 more years, right? We'd have to wait 4 more years now, and then if the money is still allocated in this bill, as it currently sits, then we could reapply, you know, at that point in time, so.
Yeah, so it's on page 2, there's a temporary incentives. It talks about is eligible for 4 consecutive year provision, and then the next one says may be qualified for no more than 1 4 consecutive year provision and flexibilities in any 8-year.
So it ends in 23, or 24,
It ends this year, and we have until the end of next year to spend everything.
and then you have to wait 4 years.
Yes. To reapply. So I think what I included in the packet, you can go online and look and see all of the annual reports from all of the school districts. Well, the next thing that's in your packet is Felicia's guidance on how to track the grant. So that's just an accounting thing. So you'll see Fund Code 29, and we did a good education of that last week. There's also a revenue code that's in there that I don't really know what that means, Felicia, and there's also a program code. And I
You
don't
don't know this?
So revenue is booked differently. So like a revenue code for regular district taxes is 1111. So all revenue codes are 4 numbers. You guys don't need to worry about revenue codes, but
I think that's,
they tell us exactly. Because what'll happen is the county will get the money from the state, and they don't necessarily know what the revenue code for transformational learning is. They just get this check from the state. So it may show up differently on the statement, but I know what that is, so I coded in our system so that when we have our trustees' financial summary, it'll show the difference between the district levy and then the state transformational learning aid, because it's coded to that revenue source.
I think this, so I printed off fiscal year 23 reports. If you look at that document, this is a brief summary that OPI put together, so it's just next in that series of documents that I gave you. So as of fiscal year 23, these were the select schools in the state of Montana who were receiving transformational learning grant monies. And it's a pretty kind of high level overview of what the districts did with these funds. But it's really interesting to look at because I think we did a lot of the same stuff that others. So our league, you can see they use personalized writing curriculum and then the purchase and professional development. When we get into ours, we'll see exactly the same thing. The bigger effort for personalized learning as a result of this money has really been, it feels like it's been easier to target down in our elementary with our K-5 reading and math programs that have a component in the curriculum that's called MyPath. It's totally geared and totally targeted towards reading and math curriculum. That's been a little bit of an easier lift than personalizing the experience for our middle school and high school students. Our Lee High School, you can see did some learning hub courses and some professional developments. Belgrade bought seating, desks, and just equipment, with their stuff. Standards-based learning, professional development. Belgrade also got some social emotional curriculum out of it. But similar to what we're doing in high school, they got some construction courses going on in Belgrade. I think we allocated at the tail end of this, some similar developments. Belt with self-paced reading programs. We've also got that going on. They also targeted for their dyslexia students. Felicia, I don't know if we put any of our transformational learning grant into any of that departments.
No, we utilized, our ESSER learning loss dollars for that, and then this year, we're doing the grant for the local family who said we will pay for an aide, to provide dyslexia services, so that was a huge boon to the district.
And that was a local family?
Yeah. Belt with, supporting their online honors AP courses, similar things that we're trying to do here, foreign language course. Bozeman Elementary, did something like that. East Helena some PD, site visits to other schools. So do that, so that could be sub time, release time to pay for that. NPDA courses, Elder Grove. I think the big connection for us is one-to-one student Chromebooks. We also leverage the money, in a similar way to that. I thought Fairfield was interesting. They're paying for food, grab and go breakfast and after school tutoring. RTI programs, which we do some response interventions as well. A little closer to home, you see some Bromberg stuff there, work study courses, MTBA, independent learning courses in ag, music, art. Frontier, they allocated money towards the play, which I thought was pretty cool. We're going to be looking at, there might be a possibility, our 4th and 5th grade band program is growing, and Ms. Kerper and Mr. Ron are thinking about ways to try to make sure that we have instruments in all those kids' hands. So there is a little bit of repair that needs to be done. So we're looking at potentially about $2,000 to repair some of the instruments, and there might be purchase of new instruments.
Do you need instruments?
Oh, we do. Yeah. Yes, and I think Transformational Learning Grant is an exceptional opportunity to use that to hopefully build up that program. They had some discussions about maybe we create a choir pipeline and maybe we create a band pipeline early. I think there's benefits to that, but then I think they kind of come around and let's just put an instrument in every kid's hand, and they didn't necessarily know if that was a possibility because instruments are expensive. But I think with this money, and what we find is it's always harder to spend in the elementary, and so this would fit kind of perfectly into that transformational learning opportunity. And then so you see the Joliet programs there. So we've used this for Apex Learning, and this is going back a few years now. I think this is reporting out from the reporting that I did from the previous administration. But our committee got together to adopt math programs that had kind of that personalized transformational approach. So the big hit, which you'll see in the funding, is $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in textbook adoptions. But you see that was the big first purchase that we made in elementary. We went to high school doing similar things, one-to-one Chromebooks. There were some teachers that got together and were looking at some purchases, and they did those virtual reality headsets. Mixed opinions on those, but I do see they're actually still being used, which is awesome. Yeah, Mr. Campbell's got it in his room. Digital arts technology, some online monitoring devices, Apex, and we'll get into more detail about what we do, but I also thought it was interesting just to see, again, you go to Noxon, one-to-one Chromebooks, Plentywood, welding equipment, personalized music and equipment. So last page is just acceleration certificate programs, dual enrollment. So I think that what you see with Transformational Learning Grant, why this has been an awesome grant for us, is it's really flexible in nature, and it's a pretty big chunk of money that really goes a long way with that. So I thought that was just the best way. When you go online, if you want to dig into all the other annual reports from the other schools, they went away from this format, and so what you'll see up there now is just the full report that I submitted. And so they're pages and pages and pages long. This one was awesome because it was, you know, kind of they pared it all down and did that work. Then, I want to make sure we're looking at the same thing. Claims, are we looking at this, Felicia? Is this what we have, 9/10/24,
Yeah,
printed at
so that's
402?
the 23-24 expenditures for transformational learning.
This would be 23/24. So you see just that first item. So what we look for is just those big chunk things. $36,000 for K-5 reading student materials. That would have been iReady, Curriculum Associates, CKLY. You see that that's in there. The magnetic reading, those are all K-5 items. The K-5 teacher professional development, $12,000. You see that down a little bit. Huge chunk money. So then you're getting into $77,000 directed towards that particular K-5 adoption. Some of the planning that I credit Felicia with, there were years in which very little of the elementary transformational learning grant money was spent in preparation for a year like this when you knew you were going to do a 6-year curriculum adoption. Great. Squirreled it away in the first year. The next year comes in. Now you can combine those 2 years of money. And then now you've got
Yeah, you have 2 years to spend.
now you've got a
so.
6-year adoption, which $77,000 out of the general fund is a lot. And just kind of like same story. Apex Unlimited is some of those, distance learning things in the middle school. Study Sync, $3,500. Study Sync is the middle school ELA program that was approved by the trustees. You see some social studies curriculum. So TCI, it's an online program that students are able to engage with. We moved some of the materials over to that TCI program, but again, Study Sync. Anytime you see things like McGraw-Hill, Savas Learning Company, those big adoptions. The VR headsets are in there on that page. GoGuardian software. We've talked about that one a little bit. It allows teachers to see the screens of all Chromebooks from their personal device. So students have to log into a classroom, so to speak, and then I can be here, see what's going on every kid's screen, kids getting distracted or disrupted or something like that, then I can go have that intervention. Not all teachers use that, but teachers do like that quite a bit. Anything to mention on the TFS there, Felicia, that's on that page?
This is just the high school, and just to kind of highlight, so TFS is just basically a snapshot of the year, so this is the 23-24. So this top section here shows all of our revenue. So that's where that coding becomes important because we have our district tax levy, which is our permissive levy. That's that 1110 number. We again earn interest. If there's money sitting in there, we earn interest on that. So that was great to have, $1,500 in interest to add to what we can do for our students. Then that 3760, that's the state payment of the transformational learning. And then the 3770 is the advanced opportunity grant. You can see the huge difference in those two. It's not as huge on the high school. On the elementary, it's a pretty big discrepancy between transformational learning and advanced opportunity. So we wish we had more advanced opportunity money. Maybe this session they'll do more because that was brand new from last session. So.
Yeah, one of the questions I think, Jason, that came up was on salaries, being paid out of transformational learning grants. So you'll see, if you look at 23 verse 24, we didn't pay any salaries out of transformational learning grant. As a result of the adoption of the kind of construction pathway and the money being pushed into that to redo the shop, build up some of those pieces of equipment, and having the teacher in there. Felicia, I think, has a pretty sound, I think the decision is good that as the supplies money come out of transformational learning grant, the teacher money should track with that. So it keeps it kind of all those things. You're not paying a teacher out of the general fund, but yet the supplies are coming out of transformational learning. That's all kind of packaged up together.
Yeah.
And that line of thinking for me makes a lot of sense. I don't know if you want to speak a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so like, and this is a state grant, the general federal grant guidelines are, if you're paying for a program with grant money, all of that program should be paid for out of grant. So when we do our title grant, for instance, we have to allocate so much to salaries and benefits to pay the educator to run that program. And so this was a very clean way to say, okay, we are adopting these two new programs. We have in here the child, I don't know what that program is, the kind of the CNA
Early childhood
program.
development, human
Yeah.
services pathway.
Yep, and so she's under that 377, her salary is in there, and then the Woods class fits more into that transformational learning. And so it just says, this is the cost of adopting that new program. And you guys said, yeah, we want to move forward with that. This gives us a really good snapshot of, okay, we adopted this is how much this program is costing us. So if you look to set up a shop, is not cheap, and not all of this 36,000, this one right here.
But it says high school.
So not all of this 36,000 is materials for the wood shop, but equipment, supplies, all those kinds of things, this is where it's coming out of. So from a grant tracking process, it's so much cleaner when the auditors show up to say, this is the utilization of this grant. Here's the board approval for the program. Here's the cost of the program, so.
And I think the only thing I was kind of saying, like, when we talked about the salary deal, that's great for starting the program, but then knowing that when the grant goes away, now the 19,000
Yeah,
is gonna
and
come out of general fund,
Yeah, it's the
They'll
same,
keep it.
yeah.
Well, sure hope we would.
And any one-time
Yeah.
money though has that, so Esther, a lot of districts are facing a huge funding cliff because they used extra money to pay for hiring new people, hiring interventionists, all these kinds of things, and now that money's gone away, and now they're like, okay, now what do we do? And it happens with any grant money that you get in. If they all of a sudden decided, oh, we're not gonna give you a title grant anymore, it's like, oh, well, we have several teachers who were paid from that title grant. Same with gifted and talented. So there are a lot of things that, grants are great, but there's no such thing as free money. So
Right.
Yeah.
there's always strings attached and,
And I think what we're trying to probably prep the board for is that this is the last year of this grant, and that's in the elementary, roughly $60,000 a year, right, and in the high school, about the same.
71 this year in elementary,
$71,000 in the elementary, what was it in high school?
42.
So we're doing $110,000 here that is gonna be withdrawn. So you might have to be thinking about hard decisions about the human services career pathway. A guy like Mr. Marr coming in and teaching AP computer science principles, because I think we're paying him out of the advanced opportunities grants. And that wood shop stuff that never would have existed. I want to make sure that we're not saying we're taking these programs away, that this grant allowed us to expand those opportunities in that direction. But now, as it comes to an end, we're going to need to be considering that.
I just hate to see us build something like that wood shop or whatever, and then just because the grant goes away, there sits all the tools and everything.
Yeah.
That's landed with it.
Mhm.
Well, and maybe we just incorporate that into a regular curriculum offering.
Yeah.
We now have done the big expenditure of purchasing all of this stuff, so now it's basically salaries.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, salaries essentially is what it needs,
Yep.
at this point.
And truly, I mean, this salary would have hit the general fund anyway. So it's not like it's a brand new salary, it's just something that we were able to pay for out of a different place for a short amount of time. So the salary for this has always been in the general fund. We just had the ability to kind of use this funding, to add it, because it wasn't a course offering we ever had before. And it actually expanded this year. Last year, I think it was only 2 class periods.
Yeah, massively.
And so I think it's been a great, I've seen fabulous things coming out of there, so.
But, and not just that, not just the shop, right? I think our kids have become, dependent upon and relied upon the opportunities to do like Apex,
Oh, yeah.
right? Those have just become kind of like a part of the normal course of doing business here. But to the tune of, if you go to that next page, Apex Unlimited Access, $2,800, right, is, probably something that's a little bit more easy to absorb, but, something that we need to consider. So $3,300 for Apex enrollments, AP classes for students. But yeah, there are quite a few materials going into the shop on that front. But on the next page, you continue to see McGraw-Hill, those textbooks are out there. Montana Digital Academy, you'll see that on the bottom of that page, the tune of about $2,500 for kids. And then as you continue to flip over the budget report for elementary, 129 is again, CKLA is the Kinder One reading program that's going on down there, so that's Amplify. And then Anything Curriculum Associates is iReady. And those are just kind of the, can't use that word maintenance, that you make a big adoption, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, but you still need to buy 10 workbooks every year because you got students moving in or something going on there. So there's always kind of those little expenses that come with it. Any questions about Transformational Learning Grant? I think that, so if you get through that.
So I do have a question. So it started out as transformational learning and then went to enhanced opportunities?
No, they're separate.
So,
So if you look at this page right here, this budget page,
yeah,
it'll show the 3760 is the transformational learning, that $21,000. There's 3770 is the advanced opportunities. They're 2 separate grants.
Gotcha.
Advanced opportunities at this point in time is a fully funded perpetual program from last legislative session. So this will, in theory, continue.
the enhanced opportunities will
Yes,
continue.
the transformational learning will go, yeah.
Advanced Opportunities.
They do.
Montana Advanced Opportunities Grant.
I'm amazed at how much smaller the advanced opportunities.
Way smaller.
I thought they were very similar, but not even close.
And that one is also formulaic, and I think it just requires the submission of a letter. I don't think that's a competitive grant. It's just, if you want to get it, you can get it. Felicia's page here, the Transformational Learning Accounting, is kind of the high-level breakdown. Did you get that one, Felicia? And that's broken down kind of into a little bit more digestible. You do have to take some time a little bit. You got going all the way back to 21, 22 on that. So I don't know if you want to talk through it, Felicia, but again, what you see are just the big ticket stuff. K-5 math curriculum, $42,000. The 2022, 2023 was the example of the year, I believe, Felicia, when we tried to squirrel some away. And there were not a lot of big expenditures in 22, 23, some supply stuff, some tech purchases. But then in 23, 24, there's the reading curriculum for $74,000, as well as, adding teacher in to that program. I mean, we do not have we don't have an adoption going on this year, so we'll kind of continue to keep an eye on that money, knowing that we have all the way to next year. So we have June of 25 to spend it.
June
June 26 to spend it.
Like that classroom supplies for the 2661, that would be a lot of our wood shop
Yeah, that's the
stuff.
wood shop, that was the year of the wood shop. And so you can kind of see up here, so this top, so where it says the year, it'll have the funds. So this first column is the elementary, and the second column is the high school. And you can even see the disparity between the elementary transformational learning and the high school transformational learning. You know, it's hard because we want, as kids progress into high school, we want to offer them more opportunities and more things. It's hard on this elementary level. It's like, okay, how do we spend $66,000? Luckily, we've been able to do the curriculum. But this year, you know, we're looking at, I mean, so far, we're early in the year, but we still have $60,000 to spend in elementary. You know, so what kind of expenditures? We've already done adoptions, we've already done kind of those big ticket items.
Playground?
My thought,
Playground?
Modular.
and if you look, so yeah, we looked at some of the other schools, but they're spending on, Craig, it's pretty flexible. You know, like plays and arts and, you know, I don't know if the modular would be encouraged.
Yeah,
We should
I
probably
can't
look at
imagine
that.
them saying that would be,
I think what a good,
I don't know, that transforms learning.
well, we need space.
More
Uh,
air, more oxygen, more sunshine.
Right.
Yeah,
Social,
just
emotional
If
health.
you don't have that space, you can't do other things, you know?
Yeah.
I think that probably, and not that we have to do this, but prepaying, knowing that we have a 6-year subscription on some ELA stuff, those programming, to prepay to buy. So in June 26th, let's take a look at it. Okay, let's buy 3 more years, or something like that. Then we piece together almost a decade of, you know, some textbooks, nuts and bolts type stuff for elementary.
To clarify, our playground is great, and I know our community enjoys the playground and likes the equipment, so just want to clarify.
But that's
What are your thoughts for high school this year?
You know, I think that we continue to do what we're doing. There's not a lot of hard purchases that need to be made in the shop. I like having, but we're not using this money to pay Wilson. We're using that advanced opportunities grant, right, Felicia?
His salary is so minuscule anyway,
You're right.
compared to a normal teacher.
But I would like to think of making sure that those programs don't go away. Right? Can we actually hold on to a pretty big chunk in our high school? That way we can fund the child development class for 2, 3, 4 years into the future, that we can fund Apex. You know, maybe there's something to look at with Apex. So if we've got 50 grand, you know, at the end of the year in high school, you can do things with Apex that's 2, 3, 4, 5-year purchases, right? That kind of locks that up. That way we can continue to provide that for kids. A lot of times on those things, it's $2,000, for example, for the year, or $10,000, you know, for 8 years. We end up usually just getting a year because we can absorb it in this year's budget. It becomes hard to peel off 10 grand. But those are decisions that, okay, then that sets Apex up in those distance swimming classes for, you know, like the next 5, 6 years. And we also try to be responsive for kids. So the child development class wants me to buy a baby.
Like a mannequin?
They want a baby. Yeah, and it's really cool. So they brought me in, they did a presentation on it, and it's like the bag of flour is my counter. Why don't we just get a bag of flour in here and it's just not as good, right? But now we got all the
Bells and whistles.
yeah, and like if you shake the baby, it'll tell you shook the baby. If you hurt the neck and do all that stuff. So, I really appreciate the Stratton because, in all honesty, I think that's a pretty reasonable expenditure, right? For that class, it sets those kids up. It ends up being like $1,500 though,
But
and
that's a hard thing that continues.
it's awesome, right? But Miss Stratton has made them, they have to do a presentation, she's making them fundraise a little bit, and so I appreciate, just to make sure they're serious and we're not just being frivolous with it. So at the same time as, you know, we kind of have these ideas, I think we also wait and kind of see what kids bring up, and they're passionate about something, and then you could then kind of respond and meet them where they're at. So,
Sounds good.
cool. Okay, what do you want to do next month?
Maybe title and read together
Title and read?
since they're
Perfect.
so similar and have
Okay.
all this stuff.
We'll do title rate.
I appreciate your, what is the word, attention to detail in all of these and keeping track of them. I think it makes our job as coordinators easier, and knowing that when you bring this to us, like, it's all here.
Well, and it's easy, this stuff, as we're looking at this makes sense in my brain, but not in a normal person's brain.
Well, after you gave us this nice tutorial,
Right? It's easier to look at this than it is to look at 14 pages of expenditures, so.
Well, I mean, it's up to you guys too. It's kind of a brainstorm. Clark and I have a little bit.
I like it.
About
Yeah,
these.
it's
Do you want to keep for a few months and?
I think we should. I think we should just try to rip through them all, because when I was looking at the budget adoption, obviously there's the budget piece that is taxes that you all go out and levy, on your constituents, but a lot of the grant stuff is, you're not levying that money, right? The federal government is giving it to us, or we're writing it, but it also needs to be responsibly spent. Right? So I think it's a great little feature on that one. So transition into this grant, it's going away, but we'll report on it forever. It seems like. Felicia, do you want
2 more
to
years.
show them how you spent $730,000?
Right? So this next page is our ESSER funding recap. And how I split this up is there were 5 different pots of money that we received. This first one was money that the feds pushed out to the governors. And the governors were responsible for getting that out to schools. This was in the very first year. So all of these expenditures happened from shutdown of school on March 16th to December 31 of 2020. And this is kind of the immediate kind of knee-jerk response of what do we have to have. Of course, the federal government mandated COVID sick leave. If we shut down, we were required to pay COVID sick leave.
some of this might make me twitch.
I know,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
We also were required to do COVID monitoring. We had Mandy, and you, I think, were the actual designated. Yeah. And then this.
We had like,
$700,000 in Joliet.
Not-
So go across the country.
not
Like,
to-
this-
And we got very
Insane.
little
That's why we're in the hole.
compared to their districts that got millions.
No, I
of
know, that's what
dollars.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Yeah, go ahead and twitch. We've been twitching for about 4 years, so.
Remember, they were like, here's the seating chart. Okay, so your job is sitting here. There was a pot.
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, keep going.
All the plastic dividers on everything, the keyboard covers, we did some distance learning for people who were immunocompromised or just didn't want to come back into this environment, had some reservations about that. We did over this summer provide, because there was setting, we provided meals during the summer. Well, in order to do that, because of all the COVID restrictions, they had to drive up, we had to give them their to-go containers and whatever. So this also kind of brought into the forefront distance learning. Our teachers had to learn very quickly how to run a classroom remotely. So we had to purchase some software, those types of things for them. The foggers for the buses and lots of that. So you'll see that was almost the biggest pot of money, that initial kind of push out of prep your schools. And I think because we utilized this money for that when we opened in the fall, there were a lot of schools that did not. And I think the reason for that is people felt safe bringing their kids here because we've done this work. Russ and the maintenance crew over the summer.
Because it was a scam.
I get it.
Yeah, I think let's fast forward.
Thank you.
Alicia, Dan.
So the next pot, so we have
Go
CARES.
down to art.
CARES is ESSER 2. Carissa is ESSER, or
You
CARES
said
is
it
ESSER 1.
wisely. Good job.
Right, Carissa is ESSER 2 and ARP is ESSER 3.
Yes.
And I think part of it is people don't understand the strict limits on what we could spend this money on. And we could use it for sanitizing, we could use it for online learning, we could use it for, when it comes to art, we had a specific set aside that had to be used for learning loss, to identify, to address.
And that was all very clear as we went through this as a board.
Yeah,
We
and
were very
so,
clear
yeah,
on
we were
what-
very, and, yeah. But we did a lot of things that we would not have money to do.
Mhm.
Working on our ventilation system,
Yeah.
replacing boilers, those types of big expenditures. The high school bathroom that had kind of a recurring mold issue. That was so expensive, when we ended up having to rip out and jackhammer out the floor and have them come and locate and all that kind of stuff. So it did give us that opportunity, to do some remodeling, do some work on the HVAC, and purchase some things that we otherwise would not have been able to do. So that was one great aspect of it.
And I think another, the cleaning supplies, you being able to leverage the money for, because that's a huge budget.
It is a huge.
And so kind of relieving the pressure on the general
Yeah.
fund too. is-
Yeah, as we look through expenditures, all the hand chemical, that's all cleaning supplies.
Yeah.
So it is a big expense for the district on a regular basis. And then this last one is the Math Innovations Grant. That was when the state realized that they still had a crap ton of money and needed to push it out to schools. And so this was tied kind of to math interventions and
Yeah.
teacher
And so we're kind of
professional development.
leveraging this with professional development, doing a little bit more data analysis. Ultimately, the goal here with this Math Innovations Zone money is kind of rooted in a leftover idea and strategy from Ms. Keel, which is called this J-Flex time, in which teachers have 30 minutes throughout the day, a couple of times a day, to do kind of response to intervention. So if you need accelerated learning, during this 30 minutes, you can go get your accelerated learning. If you need a little bit of reteach, you can go get that. If it's on-grade instruction. Our bigger idea plan right now is to even mix this up kind of from a grade level standpoint, that if I'm a fourth grader and I need grade level instruction, or I need instruction that's above my grade level, it would kind of build into this what we call this J-Flex time, and doing what a lot of districts are doing. They call it walk to math or walk to reading, which you go to a teacher and you're at your level. It's a complicated process, just logistical, and making sure you're being effective with it, but that's kind of how we're allocating this. And this was, I think, learning loss money.
Yeah.
That they realized that they needed to get rid of. It kind of came out at the same time as these $500 mini grants. They opened up this portal and said, hey, we got to get rid of like $1.2 million. Sign up.
$500 check to sign up for it.
So
Anyway, so there's our ESSER,
that's awesome.
the final expenditure report. So we were done, all of this money had to be, earmarked by September 30th, had to be completely spent and paid for by October 31st. And our final expenditure report is due to the state by December 10th. However, we will still be reporting on it until spring of 2026 to the federal government. So,
Because why? They said so?
because they want, because
I mean,
they said so.
no, I mean that
And
honestly, like, is there any
Because
reason?
they want to know how we spent it. So all the reporting that we do
I
is,
thought that's what you've done.
we have on a state level.
Oh.
But then the state has to report on a grand basis for the state, this is what our
To the
school
federal.
districts, yes, to the
Yeah.
federal government.
And now the federal
Where-
government is requiring.
Now that they distributed however many trillions of dollars, they want to know how it was spent.
They wanna know how
it was spent. And now to this point, we had to do the extra closeout with
Wendy Foss.
Wendy Bonds. Okay, so we're doing this extra closeout, and we're going all the way back to
March of 2020.
March of 2020.
Federal. She's a federal?
No, she's state,
Still
she's over
state.
the
Yeah.
ESSER for the
And,
state.
and she's making us reword and do like minor phrasing adjustments about, cleaning supplies or, the foggers that you got. We had an in-depth conversation about the weight room equipment, and what Felicia is losing her mind over is that you already approved this grant.
We've already
We
spent
wrote
it.
it, you approved it, the money is spent,
You
and
approved cash
now
requests. and
they're
now you want us
taking
to go
heat
back.
from federal government.
Yeah.
And so they're putting it back on school districts. It's
It's insane. But anyway, we're done with
Thank you.
this. We're done.
And what we didn't do is, I think this is Felicia's credit, we didn't put ourselves into a position to lay off anybody. We didn't put ourselves into a position to have to cut major programs, and we also didn't hamstring our general fund budget. Yeah, sure, was it nice to do the chemicals and all that stuff, but
There's
I
still
think
money.
there's still money. Yeah, there's still money.
We still have all of our employees.
Felicia, or Jason, can I recommend we go out of order? And instead of doing claims right now, do you want to look at the building reserve spending report that Felicia's put together?
Works for me.
So that is this one.
And it's kind of confusing, so I'll explain how this works. So there's the high school building reserve up here, kind of at the top. There's the 906, which is the voted levy.
Wait, did you say high school or elementary?
Elementary, sorry, I
Elementary.
didn't say high school.
You did.
So the top is elementary. The 906 is the voted levy, so that's the 60,000 voted levy that our taxpayers approved. And then the 907 is the permissive levy and the state major maintenance input that we receive from the state. And then below that is the high school, same 906 with the 60,000 that our taxpayers approved, and then the permissive levy. And as you look at the disparity, so when we did our voted levy, our maintenance split, when I put in a chemical purchase or something like that, we have a split that splits that expenditure between all of the different schools and budgets. Our maintenance split is built off of square footage, not student numbers. And so our maintenance split is about 50-50 because we have so much square footage in the high school versus elementary, middle school. But unfortunately, our permissive levy and our state major maintenance is based on student count. So that's why you see so much more of that 907 amount of 57,000, almost 58,000 in the elementary versus 31,000 in the high school, because they base that off of student count, not how we split ours out. Our auditors have required us to do that because the maintenance covers the building, which should be split by square footage. So that's why. So short recap, our $60,000 in elementary voted levy is completely spent. Our $60,000 in high school voted levy is completely spent. Our $31,000 in high school permissive levy is completely spent. So we still have about $15,000 left in the elementary permissive. We knew going in that this was going to be an expenditure-heavy year with the fencing, the door locks, the modulars, a couple expenditures we didn't plan on, ovens, steam table, roof leak.
Even though the ovens and the kitchen equipment was in the ballot language, it wasn't necessarily a year one. I think we were gonna check with one more. But you gotta be able to heat food, in the ovens, and then the steam table blowing up. Needed to be moved up.
So, that being said, it was nice that we were able to access those funds. Now, keep in mind, when you look at a cash report, we are very upside down in our building reserve right now, and the reason for that is taxes have not come in. So we've spent all of the money that we've budgeted. Well, that budget lasts a full year, but taxes only come in the end of November and the end of May. So it does look very upside down, but that's a cash basis, not a budget basis.
Is the steam table stuff, is it all done? Counters?
Yeah.
All that, it's all done?
Yeah, it's done. This isn't the total reflection because we have room built from the same company.
Yeah, so this is just through the end of October. So,
High tech,
high altitude.
high altitude, we haven't been billed for that, but he wasn't here for very long.
We just paid that one. We just got that invoice and it was like $300 or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah,
I think the
and they were
stainless steel guys
separate.
are gonna be,
You know, because it needed to be, the old one was hardwired in, so he had put an outlet in there and got that all done. It wasn't that much. Stainless gas would be a couple thousand, as I shared out, yeah. It looks really good. It, go down and take a look. It looks like a built-in. It's all stainless. Remember that whiteboard material that came out of English class or something?
It was original, wasn't it?
That steam table?
that setup was originally for a long time.
It's been a long time, totally, custom and built in, but the one that's in there now looks good too, like custom and built in, and we would be able to tell, any other way around it, so I know the kitchen's very happy. So we'll have to consider what we wanna do next year, on expenditures from the facility standpoint. Like Felicia said, I would echo that. We knew that this year was gonna be a big expenditure year, so we won't be in that position we can't pay for the 15,000 still there, but using it to pay for cleaning supplies and things like that, we won't have that.
Repairs and things like that.
We won't have that flexibility throughout the rest of the year, so all that money's gonna hit the general fund a little bit. But then year 2, 3, we'll have a little bit more flexibility. I think the big thing that we're looking at right now is the parking lots, resurfacing, repainting. I think we're on the books already for that come July to take care of that front. We know that we have the exterior lighting project. What's that gonna cost?
Tech on 10% of their bid at least.
That could be 50 grand.
Yeah,
It could be a 50 grand deal.
well, and our, and obviously it's construction, so there are going to be deviations from the bid for the start. So once they get on ground and go, oh, didn't realize this, or price of materials has gone up, labor's gone up, those kinds of permitting, things like that.
Okay, got a couple minutes. Any specific questions in the plans? I think we did a good job last month. And there's really nothing that's totally different. I made a note on the front page, Allied Control and Mechanical, 3218. Blower shaft in the lobby, and then the fan motor above the lunchroom, as well as in the middle school mini splits, was that expenditure.
ATS, remind me again.
ATS is the controls. That's our quarterly purchase. I know. It just, every time,
No, 16,000.
$16,000. And, we've been this close, right, to pulling the plug on it, and we just get there and, it's, I don't know. Conditioned air systems, that's kind of like an unusual one. The walk-in freezer was kind of on the fritz. It wasn't getting down. I think it was at like 25 degrees. It was still freezing, but it wasn't, too low or where it needs to be at. Common curriculum, that's an annual purchase. A lot of our teachers use that for our lesson planning software. Where they can just go in and type in their lesson plans, and it's pretty slick. You can share it with your administrators so that Mr. Richard can see the plans, Ms. Hernandez can see the plans. A lot of teachers like that, and it rolls over from year to year.
And that's paid out of our title grant. So that's a professional development. Title II is kind of for teacher development and things like that. So it's nice to have those title funds to provide that to them because they do like that.
There was an odd accounting one, it's on page 4. There's the curriculum associates for 4,400. That's got a weird thing underneath that, Felicia.
So this was a PO that was generated in the previous fiscal year. Again, we're using title money for this. It was a professional learning seminar or something to that effect. And because we had to spend our title money, I said, well, great, we can generate the PO, and then when we get the expenditure in, it books into last year. So that doesn't hit this year's grant, it hits last year. So that's why that looks weird.
They came in and did on-site PD for our K-5 teachers. So K-5 teachers didn't have to go out and do something different. We hosted it here, totally catered to what they're doing with those programs. Pretty good deal. We had Mike McIntyre do some work, going up the ramp to the football field as well as in the bus barn. He's super efficient. Bus barn paid out of, transportation. The Montana school equipment for the lockers, $6,100 in lockers, we looked at those. So Felicia paid that out of money that it was assessor money?
No,
Or-
so, if you have an unanticipated increase in enrollment, the state will just automatically send you, money. You used to have to go through a process and do a budget amendment to access that money. A couple legislative sessions ago, they just said, that's dumb. Because they're the ones that see it, and then what they would do is they would notify schools, hey, you've had an unanticipated enrollment increase. You can do a budget amendment and access these funds, and so they decided to get rid of that red tape and just send it, which is lovely.
That's a good thing.
So much easier, right? Yes.
So it's
One
free,
good thing.
free extra money then?
Free extra money, yes. Free. Did we just say there's no free?
Yeah,
right,
What was
yeah.
that part?
Well, just-
There's a hook somewhere.
There's
Yeah.
a somewhere. Well, and the hook is, they automatically deposit that into our grant funds instead of into the general fund, which is where it used to go when you do a budget amendment, it would just go into your general fund. But it's fine, the parameters on what we can spend this on are very broad, so.
And then you have to report back to them.
Not necessarily, but it shows up on our TFS. It shows, that project, so when we do the TFS, I have to put in every project reporter code and what that money is for. So they can look down and say, oh, 379 is your unanticipated enrollment increase funding, so.
When we all redo our lives, we'll just get in the copy business, sit around and just make money when other people
But we're
print.
not paying a lease payment on copiers. So, that's kind of a good thing.
There's Peterson, doing their thing. Rector Ranch is, Dean Welch. So he's at the bottom there. Red Rooster, that was, spraying up on track, clear the weeds off, so $1,500 for that.
To spray weeds on the track.
Yeah.
So your business, you can get it too.
Right, and they're cheap compared to other.
We did spray it. Yeah.
And we get that all
Austin he fashioned something, on the, what's that thing called, John Deere, no, what is that?
Sorry,
Side by side, the Gator.
Yeah.
Yeah, he fashioned something, it's not quite as effective. It does an okay job. With it, that was done a couple weeks before the, facilities walk up there, and I think there was some discussion about that. Are we not doing that anymore? So we took the action, to get it done. TOGAT test is for gifted and talented, to identify, high achieving students. So Riverside Insights, cognitive abilities test is there. Selby's gym banners, those are continuing to roll in. We made our first purchase. We made our first purchase out of the gym sign program. We paid for, he's got a signed picture right there, Nick Kaufman, was a motivational speaker. He was on Deadliest Catch. If you've ever seen that show, he told kind of his life story. Karma's there, came up for that. And, motivational speaker, I think resonates with some kids, maybe not so much with others, but I think his message is be your own captain or be your captain. This is your life and go make it happen. So I didn't see that he gets dropped out and are up in Alaska fishing today, so I don't think so. So yeah, but we thought that was good use of that one. Yeah. But other than that, everything's kind of same old, same old.
Have you probably aren't that college, was there any chatter of the kids?
I don't hear anything in my office.
So I think the strongest report was, from Mr. Hernandez, there were a lot of kids, high school included, that went down after the assembly to visit with him and get autographs. Right, as opposed to just kind of, floating out in that way, so. Yeah, we haven't done that in a while, and I think it's a good thing.
The last speaker we had was,
What do you charge?
I think it was 1950.
the last one we had was like 3 years ago.
Pretty-
And it was a suicide prevention
Yeah,
kind of speaker.
yeah, they're not
2 or 3
cheap,
years.
they're not cheap guys.
Yeah, no.
You know, they're pretty proud of their work. So he was in, I think he's in Weibo today. He had done the FCCLA convention in Montana or something like that. So I think he's making a Montana sweep right now.
Are we done?
Yes.
Because we're just kind of
Why don't you
behind here.
leave it?